Hey, it's America's Supermom. Thank you for joining me on my podcast. This series is the Corona Chronicles. I created this so that we would have an outlet of positivity in the midst of a lot of negativity. You know what I'm talking about. All the news, the fear around this virus, how it can affect us, what the new normal is looking like, and how so many things have changed that a lot of people feel like um, it is the end of the world, so to speak. So, this podcast was created so that those of us who have hope, who are willing to move forward with this new normal and innovate new things that will help us to be creative and positive. That is what this platform is for us to come together and share that positivity and that light with those who may need it. So if you're interested in sharing your insight, please reach out because we can never have enough positive news. So sit back and enjoy the show.
I want to thank you guys for joining me today. I'm really excited about my next guest, Lynn Power. We actually have not met in person. However, we were connected through LinkedIn. So I'm excited to have a conversation with her. I'm really intrigued because her superpower is helping others deal with setting up a great support system in tough times. And boy, or do we have some tough times right now.
Mhm.
So I think she could give us a lot of insight, on how we can move forward and have a positive view in the midst of these trials that many of us are faced with. So at this time, I'm going to give Lynn the opportunity to introduce herself before we get into our conversation.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, we are connected on LinkedIn. I think we both went to Indiana, which now my son is at Indiana, by the way, although he's not going back to school. Talk about adversity.
Right.
Right? That's a whole topic we could go off onto, but he's doing his semester online at home.
Okay. Okay.
So there you have it.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I'm really happy to be here to talk about this. I do have a superpower around building teams, high performing teams, which I think is one of the best resources that you can have when things are tough. To have the right people around you is absolutely critical. It's critical anyway, even when times are not tough. But even more so, I feel like now, as we're juggling our lives, our work, all sorts of things, right? Our kids, as we mentioned.
So true. Yeah, so true. Yeah, this is so important. And this is definitely a great topic because, a little bit of history about me was I struggled being a high achiever with a kind of team mindset because I was raised to, get the best grades and, be on honor roll and do all these things that are individually driven.
Yeah.
So when it comes to being on a team, that shift doesn't automatically take place, and I found that to my own demise with my own struggles with that, knowing that I can't control my kid's husband or anybody else in the picture, right?
Right.
But for people to, so we kind of, some people who are, high achievers go through this process of feeling like it's weakness to get a team or ask for help or get support, however you want to frame that. How do you help people embrace such a change?
Well, it's a really good point that you raised because I am a very type A person, I guess you would say. I'm somebody who just likes to get shit done. I am motivated by being productive, much to my husband's angst. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I learned a while back, probably mid-career. I spent a 30-year career in advertising, and I ran agencies. At the end of my career, I was CEO of J. Walter Thompson, New York, and before that, I was president of Arnold. And I learned, though, that it's much easier to be successful when you've got the right people around you and you're not having to do everything yourself. And it is hard when you are a person like myself and like you're describing yourself to give up some of that control. But what I realize is, especially when it comes to marketing, small business, there's so many things that you need to, being an entrepreneur, there's so many things that you need to know that you can't possibly know everything. It's just, it's impossible. So the world is changing so quickly around us. I mean, even keeping up with all the new algorithms on social media, you know what I mean? It's really difficult. So what I've kind of figured out is that there's certain things that I'm really good at, and there's certain things that I'm really bad at, and or I just don't like. I don't want to spend time doing. And I think having the self-awareness to know what things that you want to lean into and what things you don't is super valuable, because then you can bring in those capabilities for the things that you're not so keen to do yourself. Like for me, like I'm not somebody who likes to dig into the finances, and I'm not super analytical. So I have 2 people on my team who deal with those 2 things, who are fantastic at it. And I trust them implicitly, and I don't have to, spend my time worrying about it. So I think part of creating this team and this team mindset that I'm talking about is recognizing that you don't have to be perfect and you don't have to have all the answers. And once you realize that, it's sort of liberating. It's like, you don't have to be the person telling every single other person what to do. There are other people that know better, that know more, that can direct it, and so that's where my head is at. And I think the key is figuring out what capabilities you need,
Right. Yeah, that's good. And, it is a game changer. I know that once you recognize what you choose to control or what you can't control, it just really leaves a lot of burden off your shoulders. I guess the next question I would ask is, when you do hand off that responsibility to other people, how do you begin to have effective communication? Because, it can be like, I have a certain work ethic for things to be done. So if I give it over to this other person and let's say, something gets past them and it's like, well, how did you not see this? This was supposed to be your responsibility. We entrusted you. So how do you keep that where it's, not as type A-ish, if that question makes sense? You know what I mean? No, how do you kind of start to relax?
No, I love that question. I think, the trick is to figure out the right way to motivate the people on your team, and all of them need different things. I have one person on my team who likes a lot of structure. She likes to have clear deliverables, clear structure, and not too much on her plate, because then it gets overwhelming. So knowing that I know that about her, I try to sort of manage that, you know what I mean, and help her manage it. I have other people on my team that are the opposite, that just want to take on more and more and more and more. And it's like, okay, great. And I just give them more. But I think to your question about like, how do you manage when somebody does something wrong or doesn't do it the way you would do it? I think it's all about, it sounds so obvious, right? But communication and clarity around your expectations and the deliverables, and kind of setting up front what you expect, and also, like I said, understanding how people like to work, what their styles are, what their motivation is. Some people are better workers, if you think of just people that are introverted versus extroverted, right? Some people are better working nose to the computer, doing breathtaking spreadsheets all day. Okay, that is not me. But other people, other people enjoy the interaction and the camaraderie and the social side of things, and are really good at, engaging with partners or telling the brand story, or, those different pieces. So it's kind of like unlocking what everybody really can do well, and helping them see it too, because, this is another point that I wanted to make, is that not everybody knows their own superpowers. Like some people think they're really good at something and they're not. they're actually good at something
Right.
else. You know what I mean? Because it's because like
Yeah.
they want to be good at that one thing. They want to be known for being whatever, a creative person. But really what they're good at is
Mm-hmm.
like the client services and business side.
Right. Now that's a key thing. So, I guess the next thing would be like, how do you foster a great team culture? Because, like just like you said, there's so many different ways that people thrive.
Yeah.
Some people are introverts, extroverts. I mean, this I really could apply to my own household because we still have 10 kids here,
Oh, God.
and everybody definitely doesn't have the same personality.
Yeah.
But, so how do you, foster that group culture? How do you, transition to that?
Well, I think one of the most important things you can do as a business or as an individual who has a business
Mm-hmm.
is define your proposition and your values and make those
Mm-hmm.
really clear and make those really a part of what you do and how you behave, not just lip service. And that to me is critical because if you do that in the beginning and you say, these are the things that are
Mm-hmm.
important to me,
Mm-hmm.
then everything else kind of falls in place. And when people know that also, like when you're hiring people, if you
Mm-hmm.
say one of my core values is transparency and you hire somebody who doesn't like to share, you know what I mean? Or somebody who's not open about what they're working on, well, that's a problem. But if you have that up front
Right.
and you say to people, look, we are about diversity, we're about transparency, we're about generosity, like these are our values, and we want people who embody those values as well. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
who operate with a collaborative mindset, not a competitive mindset. So that's sort of my values. Now, other companies are the opposite. They want competitive people. They thrive in that environment. So
Mm-hmm.
I think if you know that that's kind of what you want to be and who you are, it's easier to attract the right people. And it's also easier for those people
Mm-hmm.
to be happy because they're around like-minded people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like they've got one person on the team who is, you know, um, aggressive and hungry, but doing it the wrong way, and everybody else is annoyed because I've had that happen. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's more like, okay, this is how the team is going to operate, and I'm lucky because I've been in a position where I've been in the industry a long time. I know a lot of great talent out there, and so when I started my own company, I launched a clean hair care brand, Masami, in February. I brought the people on my team that I wanted to. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
what I really like about what I'm doing now is that everyone I'm working with, I consider like family, like not even just
Mm-hmm.
friends, but like family. They're like my family. And when I say that, I mean my co-founder and I are super close. We truly are like family. But I also reconnected with a high school friend who's now part of my team, and she really is like family. I've known her my whole life. Do you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
love, like, for me, I'm at a point in my life where blending like my personal life and my
Mm-hmm.
professional life is a really positive thing. It's not always for everybody and it's not always depending on where you are in your life. But now for me, it's been awesome because I just can like mix everything together and it's just easier. I don't know. It just makes my life easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I so get that because, that's why a lot of people are like, well, what does she have this America Supermom stuff for? And it's like, for so long I thought, well, my life takes um, a life of its own after my kids get out of the house and they grow up, then I have the freedom to do my own thing. And it's like this compartmentalized living. And it wasn't until after I just said, you know what, this is crazy. I just feel like, I can have a fulfilled life and enjoy being a parent at the same time and enjoy being a wife and all these other responsibilities, blending them together. And it really makes the load a lot lighter and it helps give perspective for my kids. It's like, I could say, hey, I'm going in my office for an hour, I'm recording, and I can talk to them and let them know what I'm doing instead of, just going off in a corner and trying to do all these different things and be all these different things to all people. So I totally get that. what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken it probably a step further. It sounds like you have too, where I have two teenagers. I don't have the number of kids you do. I mean, my two keep me plenty busy. So only
Mhm.
imagine what you deal with. But my kids are 19 and 17, and probably I'd say 2 or 3 years ago, I started dragging them into my business stuff because once I left corporate life and I was, an entrepreneur. Um, my
Mhm.
son interned for me, which was interesting. But yeah, that's probably a subject for another podcast. But I dragged my
Right.
daughter at the time she was 16 to a beauty show, a beauty trade show in January, and she had to wear a
Mm.
Masami shirt. So she was representing the brand. She sat behind the booth. Now she was on her phone the whole time, but but I knew she absorbed stuff because afterwards she said to me, "Oh, that one woman was asking some interesting questions. Did you get her name?" And I was like, "Yeah, So I knew she was like trying
Right.
not to appear interested, but she was actually picking up
Mhm.
everything that was going on." So I look at that as it's a great opportunity for us to spend time together, but for her also to
Mhm.
get exposed to more things in the world, and just to start to see what
Mhm.
excites her and what doesn't. And both my kids
Mhm.
have said to me they don't want to go into marketing or advertising. Like they've seen my
Mhm.
husband is also in that business, and I think they just feel like they're not interested in it, even though they're both quite good at it. Um, but
Right.
that's good. At least I know. Okay, fine. You cross something off that you don't want to do. Great. Now you can figure out
Mhm.
what you do want to do.
So true. And I think sometimes even you mentioned that they're good at it. I think, we sometimes stereotype that definition of marketing to, well, marketing and advertising, this is what it looks like because I see mom and dad doing it. And so we don't really give ourselves the freedom to kind of think outside of those parameters. So if you think marketing and advertising, they just see mom and dad and your way and your method, and we don't even explore that, hey, you know what, I have a different audience and I can apply some of these principles to my audience. And we just either say it's either all or nothing, if that makes sense. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it does. I agree. I mean, I brought my son actually to Cannes, the Cannes Lion
Mhm.
Festival, which is the big advertising festival. I think he was
Mhm.
15 or 16 at the time. But his takeaway of being around so many industry people was like, oh my God, you people are pathetic. All you do is talk about advertising and you give each
Right.
other awards. He's like, seriously? He was like, I can't believe you're giving each other awards. And like Burger King got an award for an ad they did. And he was like gagging. He was like, I can't even believe this. So it was
Mhm.
it was good because he saw that like, okay, it's not just my husband and I that are doing this and crazy, but like there's a whole industry of people. But he also was so turned off. He was so
Right.
like repulsed by the whole thing. It kind of opened my eyes, I'll be honest, because I was sort of like, yeah, the can, it's amazing. Can Lions were, it's great to win and you're on the stage and you feel great. And then, when your son points out how sort of pathetic
Mhm.
it is, you kind of go, oh, yeah, it is just advertising,
So true. And that's just
you know?
one of the things that's so important to get around different people, because it's like we kind of create our own cultures. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, okay, well, we have a certain church we go to. Everybody thinks the same. So then it's like it's safe. You don't hear anybody who has a different viewpoint, and sometimes we have to kind of just jump in the fire and hear different viewpoints to recognize, okay, is this really, are we still doing the mission that we set out doing, or just get a dose of reality? Because, we sometimes can be in fantasy island sometime.
Right,
I mean,
right.
I'm
It's
like
so
that
true.
now. It's like, it's
Yeah,
so
you're
funny.
right.
I don't watch the news. And, so many people just, their moods go up and down based on the news. And I feel like I'm in this fantasy la la land because it's like, by the time I get the news, it has been filtered down so much that it doesn't have that fear factor with me anymore. It's just been told so many times that people just don't even have the same energy about it. So I think that's a good thing. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, you're not bringing me that negativity because I don't want to hear it, because they've told it like 7 or 8 or 12 times before they told me, so but yeah, it is
Yeah.
something to think about. Our kids, it's so funny because they can say anything. They have no filter, you know.
No filter. No, I mean, it's definitely like it's a reality check,
Mhm.
which is a really good thing, I think. Um, and then, of course, now with everything
Mhm.
going on around us, it's so
Oh yeah.
unprecedented for them too. I mean, so they are unfortunately or fortunately, they're sort of exposed
Right.
to everything we're doing anyway because they can't get away. They can't get away. They're stuck at
So
home and they're
true.
listening to
So
it.
true. So,
So
yeah, great points. Now, so
yeah,
when it comes to the team, there is that element of, I know I went through a transition with um, not really caring who gets the credit, because that was a big deal for me. It's like, oh, this is my grade. I got the highest grade in the class. But when you become part of a team, it's like, you know what? It doesn't matter. The finished product is really what we're going after here. So, how do you,
yeah.
position that type of cohesion, with the group? Because, different people have different things just to make that smooth.
I think one of the best things you can do is make everyone's swim lanes
Mm.
really clear. So there's not like overlap, where two people are
Mhm.
trying to do the same thing. So, well, even with me and
Mhm.
my co-founder on our business,
Mhm.
that can get very sticky, right? When you have a co-founder and you're both trying to figure things out. But the good thing is, I always talk about our relationship like a beautiful Venn diagram, where in the middle we've got the
Mm.
mission and the values that we align 100% on. But then the circles, we each have our own skills and we respect each other's skills and we do our own thing. And he's the
Mhm.
formulation guy who makes our products, and I'm the business and marketing person. So it works really well, I think, when you can really delineate, even if somebody has like
Mhm.
10 skill sets, right? And they could theoretically do everything. They're going to end up stepping on people's toes if you've got, somebody already doing some of those things. So, like, I have a guy in my team who is like that. He could do a lot of our jobs, but he's really focused on partnerships and business
Mhm.
development, like salon development. Um, and that's what he's most good at. He can do a lot, but that's the best thing, So that's, I think, one of the easiest ways to get people
Mhm.
out of the me mindset, because they can still contribute and feel like it
Mhm.
was their contribution because they own that swim lane,
I
but they're
love that.
doing it on behalf of the bigger team and they're doing it,
Mhm.
yeah, for part of the bigger
That's
goal. I
good.
think that's the most helpful thing. I've always I've always run into problems when I've got multiple people trying to do, like, you have multiple people doing
Mhm.
digital acquisition, or you have multiple people writing a blog post,
Mhm.
because that
Yeah,
just gets
definitely.
messy.
Now, so I guess, I cannot believe we're almost out of time, but I would say my next question is,
Wow.
starting a new business during this time. So you said you started in January?
Yeah. In February, it was actually, we launched
Wow.
at New York Fashion Week a couple weeks before
Mm.
the lockdown occurred. So we were in New York City in these tight little rooms with fashion shows with, talk about, it's like the
Right.
opposite of social distancing. Just a few weeks later, it was like, all of a sudden it was like, okay, quarantine. I don't think anyone, certainly not us, really fully understood just the whole impact
Mhm.
of this whole situation. I think we thought, okay, it's a few weeks, but it did cause us to sort of go back to focusing on our customer,
Mhm.
focusing on our content, focusing on our digital acquisition, getting some of
Mhm.
those foundational things right. So it was not a
Mhm.
bad thing
Mhm.
in that sense for the business. But it's definitely been
Mhm.
very unpredictable, right? It's like every day, it's like you just don't know what's going to happen. And it's funny that you said you don't watch the news, because in the beginning,
Mhm.
when everything, like in March, I would say mid March, my husband and I were watching Cuomo and the Trump briefings every day. Like, and after about a month of that, maybe a little longer, maybe 6 weeks, I just can't do it anymore. You know what I mean? It just gets like, it just feels, it just wears on you. So I think there is a benefit to not being so attached to the news and, not feeling like that constant onslaught of negativity.
I
really
didn't realize it until, I was hospitalized 3 times for depression. And after the third one, I was just like, my day, I could, you just kind of plan your day the night before. So it's like, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to do, it's already a challenge when you have a lot of kids, but, you just have this mindset that tomorrow, we're starting out fresh, we're going to do good. And then, if I just hit the ground running and then boom, I turn on the news and it's like I'm a totally different person. So I just had to realize that. Then it was like, I might have had a mission, like maybe I'm going to get like 5 guests today. But then my mission turned to the news's mission. It was like I'm an anchor for the news. I'm going around telling everybody the news and I'm not getting paid for it. You know what I mean? I was like, this is crazy.
Right.
And then I'm not motivated to do my job. It's just like, checking your email or some of these other things that we do that get us off of our intention. We begin to be on somebody else's agenda. And I just realized that about myself. And I just said, you know what? I can do without this. So, but it took some time, and because it was just like a part of a routine. My husband would turn it on. You're listening to it in the background when you get up in the morning, CNN or whatever. And I'm like, yeah. So now, my life is just, like I said, I feel like I'm in some kind of la la land or bubble. And but I have a lot more clarity. I'm able to really listen to people. I can think what I want to say before I say it. Just a number of things. It just, you're not so combative or defensive. A number of things that are beneficial with not watching it.
I love that you talk about that, because it is true. And just to have the realization of how it's impacting your mood, your approach to things, because you're right. Like, we're not paid to broadcast that. We got to focus on our own stuff,
right? How many times do
we
go around telling stuff and then they find out later something else? I just feel like this is crazy. I just couldn't do it anymore.
I know. Well, it's true, because there were all these sort of reports about, your, I guess, incidents with corona being more severe or less severe depending on different factors, like blood type, right? But then it's like, you read that and, okay, is it true? Is it not true? Does it even matter? It's sort of...
I feel you.
Right?
I know. And we really were probably feeling like a little house on the prairie or something, because we're in Georgia. And we were one of the first ones to open up. But when our kids, it was March 13th, that was their last day of school. And then they went into being into e-learning. And that was the same, that week, we just shut down our whole household. It was like, because we have older kids and they're hanging out with friends and going back and forth. We're like, no, this isn't happening. Nobody's here. You guys aren't going out. Only thing we're doing is to the store and, post office or something like that. That's it. And, for a minute, they really didn't understand it. They really know that we're serious when it comes to, we have family meetings, just to kind of let them know our values and where we stand. And, it came with a little backlash at first, but not one of them got sick the whole time. And we just had to have that approach. It was just too many of them here. And if one of them got sick, we couldn't go to the hospital with them. So it was just like, this is crazy, guys. We have to be vigilant. So now they look back and they're like
Yeah.
grateful. But at the time, there were those moments. But it was so funny. They would dress up and they'd be like the older ones, because they're over 21. They could drink wine or whatever. And they get all dressed up. And we're like, where are you guys going? They're going,
Mhm.
oh, we're going to the club living room. So it was it was a
So
joke,
funny.
because they were just like, we can't get out of here, but we'll just make stuff different in different rooms. We
Yeah.
just got a kick out of it. So yeah. Mhm.
Well, that's creative.
Oh yeah,
That's
it
one
was
way to
never a
deal
dull
with it,
moment. Okay, they come up with all kind of stuff. So, you just have to have a sense of humor for sure. But this has just
That's
been
right.
wonderful. I mean, I
Yeah.
think, what would you recommend people do who, right now, we probably need support groups with parents. Let's say, your son, he's
Yeah.
in college at home, and some of these businesses that are, having to totally reinvent themselves on a digital landscape when they're used to being face to face. So, what tips would you give them about starting a team and, you know, taking that approach?
I would go back to something I said
Mhm.
earlier. Start with your values and then try to hire people based on values and potential, not necessarily on proven
Mm.
performance. I've always felt like that. The people that I hired that way have been the best by far because they're motivated, they're driven, they
Mm.
share the same goals. And
Right.
smart people
Right.
can figure shit out. You know what I mean? Like you can figure things out, and people
Mhm.
can learn, whatever it is that you need them to learn if they're motivated and interested and curious. So I've always found that that's the best thing you can do. So don't stress so much if somebody is not like, the
Right.
Uber SEO expert. If you need that skill and they know enough to be dangerous and they're willing to learn and they're a great fit with the team and they buy into everything you're
I
doing,
love that.
then
That's
go
so
for it.
good, because they're moldable. I mean, I'm looking at my life is every time I
Yeah,
have an interview with somebody, I have to unlearn something that I thought served me. You know what I mean? So if somebody doesn't have that, that's
right.
so much better. You can start off a lot higher in terms of leveling up in advance. And so that's great. Great tips to share. So maybe one final tip, about hair care industry. What do you want to share with us about that?
Oh,
You've got a new business and,
yeah.
some things that you could share.
I would say most people's problem when they complain about their
Mm-hmm.
hair is hydration. So Um, that's there's lots of DIY hair masks you can do if you Google, things with
Mm-hmm.
avocados and bananas and all sorts of stuff, uh, which is great. But also try to, if you're home, try to be a little gentler on your hair and don't use as many heat
Mm. Okay.
styling implements because those definitely fry your hair and dry it out. So if you can let your
Okay.
hair air dry, a few days, I know not everybody likes to do that. Or, if you tend to put your hair in a ponytail a lot, I use these hair sticks that are just gentler on my hair than the
Oh.
ponytail, which tends to break the hair. Um, use a silk
Mm-hmm.
pillowcase. That's another great tip that just helps you wake up with your hair a little more
Mm-hmm.
the way
Mm-hmm.
you want it to be. So, um, and then my last tip, which is a bigger one, because we're
Mm-hmm.
all about clean beauty. Our products are clean; they don't have sulfates, parabens, or phthalates. I think that's an important um, educational piece for a lot of people. Just understand what's
Mm.
in your beauty products, not just hair products, but in all your beauty products. I mean, you'd be shocked at the things that you will find. There are a lot of cosmetic products that contain things like
Mm-hmm.
formaldehyde, for example, like really not good for your body. So just start to read the labels, look for the obvious bad stuff. Like I said, the sulfates, parabens, phthalates
Mm.
are big no-nos. And just try to get products that are a little bit
That's
better for
good.
you and
Now,
better
and
for the
so in terms
environment.
of hydration, what are some good things for people to put on their hair, to keep it like more hydrated.
Well, I mean, there are some
Mhm.
great hair masks on the market. And like our styling cream is basically like a leave-in
Mm.
conditioner practically. So like there are products that you can use that will bump up the hydration, for sure. I mean, that's the whole
Mhm.
reason for being for us. But besides Masami, like there are lots of things on the market. And like I said, there's lots of
Mhm.
DIY solutions as well, if that you can Google and find things that you have in your cabinet already that you can just mix up and whip up
Mm.
and do
That's
something
good.
yourself.
Good tips. Good to know. Well, this has just been wonderful, Lynn, and I would love for
Thank
you to
you.
come
It was
back
so
and
fun.
maybe we could, focus more on the hair aspect because I think that's, definitely
Sure.
a lot of people are really into, this upper body parts because we're on Zoom calls. You know what I mean? So hair definitely takes up a lot of
Right.
that spot, right? So
Yep.
that would be wonderful.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
what's the best way for everybody to get a hold of you and any final tips you want to share with the
Yeah, well, I'm super
Mhm.
accessible. I'm on LinkedIn, which is how you and I connected. And then I'm also on pretty much every social
Mhm.
channel as Lynn Powered, LYNPOWERED. And then also Masami is lovemasami.com, and all the social handles are Love
Okay.
Masami Hair. So you can check out that too.
Sounds good. All right. Well, this has been wonderful.
Thank
I
you.
am
Really
looking
enjoyed
forward
this.
to us connecting
Yeah,
again soon. And all the
me
best to
too.
your
That
son
sounds
who is studying right now.
great. Thank you. And well,
Thank
and to
you.
your
I
family too.
appreciate it. And you have a wonderful evening, okay? All right. Bye.
Thank you for joining me on this episode. I really enjoy providing content that inspires and challenges us to be a better version of ourselves. If you are interested in being a guest on the show, please email me at info@lachelleatkins.com. You can also reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, or my YouTube channel. If there was something in this episode that resonated with you, it probably will resonate with someone else. So please share it. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. But those aha moments, those moments of really getting something and changing your perspective are very, very pivotal in having people change the trajectory of their lives. And so being able to share insightful information so that other people can grow is the easiest thing that we can do as we pay it forward. So, again, I want to thank you all for listening. And if you have time, write out a review. Go to iTunes, Anchor, wherever you can find this podcast on any of those platforms and write a review about what impact this episode had on you, what you learned, or whatever. Any feedback is great because it just helps me to understand what content is really beneficial for those that are listening. So, again, I want to thank you all for your support and taking the time to spend some time with me and my guests. And I wish you a wonderful day. Thanks for listening.